It's the Notre Dame Fighting Irish against the Indiana Hoosiers, a battle for the state championship and the right to take on the Georgia Bulldogs in the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. Full preview and predictions is coming up next.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up? And welcome to Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. My name is Tyler Wojciak, and I'm the host. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer at Fox Sports. And we are coming at you with another Sunday afternoon edition of the show. Today is Sunday, December 15th. And thanks for starting your week right here by making this your first listen of the day. Quick reminder to hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. We've already been talking about it for over a week, and we are going to continue talking about it every single day leading up to the game on Friday when Notre Dame hosts the Indiana Hoosiers in the first home playoff game ever. Will the Irish be able to end this dream season for the Hoosiers and advance to the next round against Georgia? I'm going to share my predictions at the end after I break down the matchups in all three phases of the game. But let's begin with everything you need to know about this game because there is a lot at stake. And for Notre Dame, this is a golden opportunity to make a statement to the rest of the college football world that they are ready to take on the elite teams. A win over Indiana isn't going to change the perception of this program, nor should it, because most people expect Notre Dame to win this game. But with the talent on the roster and the path ahead of them, they could change everything about this program and their perception by making a deep run in this playoff. And it starts by taking care of business at home under the brightest lights in all of college football. That is what the great teams do. They win on the biggest stage, but in order to do that, they take care of business when they're supposed to, and Notre Dame is absolutely supposed to in this game. Kickoff is set for Friday, December 20th at prime time, 8 p.m. Eastern inside Notre Dame Stadium, and all eyes are going to be on this matchup as it is the first ever game in the new playoff format, and it's going to be the only game on Friday night. It's also the perfect opportunity for Notre Dame to showcase their ability in front of the whole world once again. Notre Dame has not played on this stage since their season opener against Texas A&M, and now it's another great opportunity to provide proof of concept that this is a new era under Marcus Freeman, and they are ready for this type of stage. Fun fact, according to Chuck Freeby at Sports Michiana, the last time Notre Dame played a home game on a Friday was back in November 30th of 1900. When they downed Chicago physicians and surgeons 5-0. Who could forget that one? That's truly one of those moments in history where you can recall exactly where you were when it happened. But this game is going to be broadcast on ABC and ESPN. Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy will be in the booth, and it's going to mark the first time a television network besides NBC has broadcast a Notre Dame home game in over 30 years. The last time was back in 1991. 1991 was also the last time Notre Dame and Indiana faced each other in football. The Irish won that game 49-27, and they lead the all-time series over the Hoosiers 23-5-1. 4 of Indiana's wins out of those 5 happened between 1898 and 1906. So it's pretty safe to say that this has been a one-sided affair since the time that Teddy Roosevelt held the presidential office. These two programs actually used to play each other pretty frequently up until 1958, but they've only played one time since. That was the game in 1991 that I just referenced earlier. Let's talk about the weather. I am recording this a little less than a week away, so don't be surprised if this weather report changes between now and the time of this game, because anyone who has ever spent a significant time in South Bend knows the weather can change like that, especially this time of year. But right now, I'm seeing a high of around 30 degrees, 10 to 20 mile an hour winds, and a 30% chance of snow. Indiana is no stranger to the cold, however. They played in the snow in their last game of the season. They handed Purdue a 66-0 drubbing. So I don't expect they're going to be too fazed by it unless it gets really windy, in which case both teams aren't going to be able to throw all that much. Curt Cignetti is their head coach. He's in his first season leading the Hoosiers, and don't worry, I'll save you the time. I Googled him. Here's what I found. The guy is a winner. As he said in his introductory press conference prior to coming over to Indiana, he coached at James Madison for 2 years, and they went a combined 19-4. He also coached at the D2 and FCS level for a really long time. He led his team to the playoffs 8 times in 11 seasons, so the guy really does win every single place that he goes. But it did take him a really long time to get to this point. He coached at the lower levels for a really long time. He's 63 years old now, first job at a major conference, and I think that is a big reason why he has such a chip on his shoulder, but it's well-deserved. He's been really successful everywhere that he has been, and he's talked a big game since he got the job, but to his credit, he has delivered. He said he wins everywhere in his press conference. He got the microphone at an IU basketball game, said Purdue sucks, Michigan sucks, and Ohio State sucks. Well, he beat 2 out of those 3 teams, and I'm sure that if he knew that Notre Dame was going to be on the schedule this year, he would have said that Notre Dame sucks too. The Hoosiers finished the regular season 11-1. It is their best season since 1967, and as I said, this is only Cignetti's first year as a head coach, but they're not just beating teams. They're hammering them. They beat FBS opponents by an average of 29.3 points per game. That is more than Notre Dame, who has also been hammering the vast majority of their opponents. Notre Dame is favored in this game by 7.5 right now, and the total is 51.5 at the time of this recording, according to our good friends over at FanDuel. Most of the public money is on Notre Dame, which frankly I don't love. I've also seen a lot of experts who are really in the know of the gambling space. They have been taking the under. I think part of that is due to the weather, but this is going to be a great matchup, and there is so much at stake for Notre Dame. Like I said, most people expect Notre Dame to win this game. Historically, there's no comparison between these two programs. Notre Dame has more resources at their disposal. This is the 3rd year under Marcus Freeman compared to the 1st year under Cignetti, and Notre Dame went all in on this season. So the pressure is on Notre Dame. Make no mistake about it. But I think this team enjoys that because they've really been under pressure all season long. They were under pressure in the season opener against Texas A&M on the road, an extremely hostile environment against an SEC team. It was a big opportunity for Notre Dame at the time. They capitalized on that, and then they actually weren't under very much pressure against Northern Illinois, and then they lost that game. Then the rest of the way, they were under immense pressure because they basically had to win out in order to make the college football playoff, and that's exactly what they did. I think the coaching staff and I think the team thrive when the lights are brightest, and they showcase that against USC. They came through in the biggest moments late in the game, first with Christian Gray's interception return for a touchdown, and then they followed that up with Xavier Watts returning at the length of the field as well to put that game away and put them in the college football playoff. With a win, this team stays alive, and they have a chance to really change their perception when they take on Georgia, who has been the best program in the sport over the last several years. But as I've been saying, they have got to take care of business against the Hoosiers first. That is going to take all of their attention, and they have a chance to do it at home. That's something that they've earned. It's something that Jack Swarbrick basically set up when he was part of the group that organized this new format. Well, now Notre Dame has a shot. They're in the 12-team playoff. They have a home game going up against a really quality Indiana team, but they have a great advantage playing inside Notre Dame Stadium. Now, there's going to be some changes because this is a playoff game. The NCAA has some say in some of that in-game entertainment, like Indiana is going to get an intro video. I think some of the in-game stuff is going to be different than you're used to for a normal home game. But you know what's not going to be different? The crowd. This is going to be an electric atmosphere. I think it's going to be very pro-Notre Dame, despite what some Indiana fans think on social media. This is going to be an amazing atmosphere. They've got a great chance to win this game. Now we're going to see if they're able to do it. All right, now let's take a look at the scouting report for Cignetti's Hoosiers. They have dominated 10 out of the 12 opponents they have faced this year, much like Notre Dame did this season. So how similar are they? That's next on Locked On Irish. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All right, so we have 2 Monday Night Football games tomorrow night. Both are pretty gross, if I'm being completely honest. How about we take the Vikings -7 against the Bears and the Raiders +3.5 against the Falcons? I don't love either pick here, but we've been on a good streak lately, so let's keep it going here. And for more, just visit FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, as we dive into the IU scouting report, let's start with the offense because that's really what has gotten them to this point. This is going to be the most efficient offense that Notre Dame has seen all year long, and even though they might not have the most raw talent of anyone Notre Dame has faced, I think that distinction goes to USC. I think Louisville also has a bunch of talent as well. This is a really impressive group. They're second in the country in points per game, and they're scoring an average of 43.2 points per contest. They're also 12th in yards per play, 12th in third down offense, 3rd in red zone offense, and they've only committed 8 turnovers on the year, which is 3rd in the country. Mike Shanahan, no relation to that Shanahan family, is their co-offensive coordinator, and he's the play caller. Tino Sunseri is the quarterback coach and co-OC, but he is leaving after the season to take the full-time OC job at UCLA. That is a correction from what I said last week when Luke Smith and I were talking about him. We know that Shanahan is, in fact, the play caller. He is going to be around for this game, and they like to run a ton of RPO. You're going to see a lot of run-pass option. They're extremely efficient with it. They like to run a ton of slants, and they are going to attack the middle of the field. Curtis Rourke is their quarterback, and he is in his 6th season playing college football. He spent his first 5 years with the Ohio Bobcats before coming over to Indiana. He really had a breakout season for the Bobcats back in 2022. He threw for 25 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions that season, but then he got hurt, and he wasn't nearly as productive in 2023 coming off that injury, but he has been awesome this season. He's first in the country in passing efficiency. He has a 27-4 touchdown to interception ratio, and he is a great decision maker for this offense. If he's got one weakness, it's that he struggles when he faces pressure. And he also fumbles a lot. He has 7 fumbles this season, and I'm sure that the Notre Dame defense is going to be going after the ball whenever they can get hands on him. They are more of a passing offense, but they do have a strong rushing attack as well, led by number 6, Justice Ellison and Tyson Lawton. Ellison leads the team with 811 rushing yards on 5.5 yards per carry, plus he has 10 rushing touchdowns. But Lawton is right behind him, though, with 634 rushing yards and 12 rushing TDs, which leads the team. This isn't like a super explosive offense, but they will try and get you on the deep ball with their wideouts. Number 13, Elijah Surratt, is their best wide receiver. He leads the team with 890 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. He is averaging 18.2 yards per reception. And then behind him, you've also got to worry about number 3, Omar Cooper Jr. He's got 571 yards on just 27 catches for over 21 yards per reception. And he has 6 touchdowns. Keyshawn Williams and Miles Price are solid out there as well. So Notre Dame's secondary is absolutely going to be tested in this matchup. They also have a pretty good offensive line. They were a semifinalist for the Joe Moore Award, but I think that's a little bit misleading. I don't think they're one of the best offensive lines in the entire country because they have faced a ton of bad defenses. When they faced off against the better defenses on their schedule, like Michigan and Ohio State, this group struggled mightily. And Ohio State was a really bad game for this entire offense. They finished with 151 total yards. Curtis Rourke was sacked 5 times in that game. And the line looked especially shaky since their starting left guard suffered a season-ending injury not too long ago. So they have not really been tested all that much, but when they have been tested, the defenses have been able to get the better of them. So my keys for the Notre Dame defense, number 1, you've got to get pressure on Curtis Rourke. Like the majority of quarterbacks out there, they aren't nearly as effective when they're in the face of pressure. That was on full display against Ohio State. He had 23 total dropbacks against the Buckeyes. He got sacked 5 times, as I mentioned, and he only completed 1 pass when he was under pressure. Notre Dame has to confuse him pre-snap and get in the backfield to disrupt their offense. They aren't really going to beat you with raw athleticism. They can beat you with timing and execution, but that really all goes out the window when the quarterback is under duress. So they have to be able to confuse Rourke so he makes the wrong decision because that is what he's been so good at all year. If the defense gives him free access throws or anything like that, he's been able to take advantage of that. I'm sure that there are going to be some opportunities for that in this game, but Notre Dame can force him into mistakes if they get pressure early and often. The second key for the Notre Dame defense, they've got to win in man coverage. Indiana has not faced a ton of man coverage this year, but Ohio State and Michigan were both able to have success when doing so. We know Al Golden likes to leave his corners on an island. There are certainly pros and cons to that because Christian Gray is coming off the worst performance of his career against USC. Now, he finished strong with that pick 6, but he really struggled during the second and third quarters of that game. A lot of people were asking, why is he still out on the field? And I'm sure that IU saw that on tape, and they are going to try and attack him once again. Meanwhile, Leonard Moore played lights out against the Trojans, but he's still a true freshman playing in his first playoff game. This is going to be a big stage for him. He has not really played on anything like this all season long. He came in for a little bit in that game against Texas A&M when Benjamin Morrison left with an injury, but he's never played in a game like this in his career, so he is going to have to step up in this game as well. If the cornerbacks can hold their own, then Al Golden can scheme up some exotic blitzes with the linebackers and safeties, create more pressures, which should lead to negative plays and turnovers. Now, let's flip it over to the other side of the ball. Let's take a look at the Indiana defense. Statistically, they are one of the best defenses in all of college football. But I've started to see some comparisons between them and Notre Dame as basically the byproducts of a weak schedule. Don't get me wrong, that is partially true. The Irish have played some bad offenses this year, but I don't really think it's a fair comparison. Okay, let me break it down. So they're led by Bryant Haynes, their offensive coordinator, and their numbers are terrific. They're only allowing 14.7 points per game. That is 6th in the entire country. They're also 3rd in opponent yards per play, 10th in points per drive, 1st in rush yards allowed per game, 2nd in yards per rush, 3rd in yards per pass attempt allowed, 8th in third down defense, and 4th in turnovers gained. This isn't in the Big Ten. This is in the entire country. I could keep throwing more stats your way, but you get my point. This has been a stellar defense all year long. However, they have played one good offense. That was Ohio State, and the Buckeyes were able to put up 31 points on them. Of the other FBS offenses that they faced this season, this is where they finished in scoring offense. Florida International, 79th. UCLA, 126th. Charlotte, 99th, tied with Maryland, their other opponent, 99th. Northwestern, 128th. Nebraska, 97th. Washington, 109th. Michigan State, 123rd. Michigan, 112th. And Purdue, 129th. For those keeping track at home, that is 9 offenses. 9 ranked 97th or worse in scoring offense. Meanwhile, Notre Dame finished 3rd in scoring defense, and they faced 4 offenses who finished in the top 50 in scoring offense, like USC, Army, Navy, and Louisville, who finished 11th. They both clearly benefited from playing some poor offenses this year, but it's just not the same. What Notre Dame has done on defense is more impressive. But that being said, there are still some quality players on this Indiana defense, and it starts with number 6, Mikhail Kamara. He is a stud. I talked about him last week on the mailbag as one of the players that I am most concerned about in this game on Indiana. He has 10 sacks on the year. 10. 15 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 3 fumbles recovered, and 60 total pressures. That's one of the top in the country, and this dude would start at Notre Dame tomorrow. He's one of the best players that Notre Dame has faced all year long, but his only bad game was against Ohio State. I think that's noteworthy. Number 99, James Carpenter, is a good player on the interior of that defensive line. He has 5 sacks this season, which is really impressive for a defensive tackle. He's very disruptive against the run and the pass. And then number 4, linebacker Aiden Fisher. This dude is always going to be around the ball. He leads the team with 108 tackles. He's first team All Big Ten. He is really, really good at stopping the run. He's a big reason why this Indiana defense has been so stout against other teams' rushing attacks. In the secondary, I think number 5, D'Angelo Pons, he's their quarterback. He is their best player in that secondary. He's not very big. He's only 5'9", 170. That's what he's listed at. I'm not even sure if he weighs that much, but he plays big. Trust me. He's only allowing a 54.5 completion percentage when teams try to throw his way. He has allowed 245 receiving yards, but has 7 pass breakups and 2 interceptions, including a huge pick 6 against Washington. I was watching that game. That was the first time really all season long that Indiana faced any type of game pressure, and then Pons just put it away with that big pick 6. He did play really well against Ohio State, and we know how talented their receiving core is, so I expect him to win most one-on-one battles against anyone he gets on Notre Dame's wide receiving core. Number 25, Amari Farrell, is their nickel/safety. He leads the team with 4 interceptions. He's a very disruptive player. Number 1, Sean Asbury, is a good safety as well. He's around the ball a lot, but he's not quite as good in coverage. He's been targeted 24 times this season. Teams have completed 79% of passes against him for 187 yards and a touchdown. So that's something to keep an eye out for in the game. My keys for the Notre Dame offense. Number 1, protect the ball at all costs. Notre Dame is the more talented team across the board, but if you turn the ball over, you can lose to anyone on any given day. The Irish had 2 turnovers against USC. One was a fumble from Jaden Thomas, just popped right back in the air, and then we had a really gross interception from Riley Leonard. That kept USC in the game. The only time that Notre Dame lost the turnover margin this year was against Northern Illinois, and it's not a coincidence that was their only loss of the season. I know it's cliche, but it is paramount that they control the football in this game, especially when you consider the weather and the chance for precipitation. The team who turns the ball over less is going to win. So Notre Dame's offense cannot turn the ball over. Second key, they got to win on first down, and they can do this by leaning on their running backs, plus Riley Leonard's legs. Leonard has not had nearly as many designed runs as of late compared to what he was doing early on in the season, and that's good, right? They need to protect him. He is their starting quarterback, but now they're in the playoffs. You can't really protect him that much longer. He's basically like an automatic 5-yard gain whenever he runs it on first down in a designed run, especially when they spread out the defense. They need to be able to put themselves in favorable positions on second and third down. So if they're able to run the ball effectively on the early downs, they're going to put themselves in great position. IU has had a great rush defense all season long, but I'd put the trio of Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and Riley Leonard up against anyone in the country when it comes to running the ball. I know that these are kind of like boring, old school coaching keys for the Notre Dame offense, but that's the type of game this is going to be. When you consider the weather conditions and the nature of playoff football, this is how you win. Just think about the NFL, right? Teams are more about ball control, winning on the line of scrimmage, running the ball in the playoffs than they are in the regular season. That's a big reason why the Chiefs have been able to win back-to-back Super Bowls. And the Chiefs of old, you think really high-flying offenses, but then they go in the playoffs, they shorten the game, they run power, which is something they never do during the regular season, and that is how they win the Super Bowl. In the college football playoffs, especially in this format, I think that's going to be the same type of deal, and that's going to showcase itself in this game, and we're going to start to see it in this matchup. Notre Dame needs to protect the ball, run the football well on early downs, and if they do that, I think they're going to win this game. One thing we're not going to do on this show is forget about special teams. So what kind of impact could the third phase have on this one? I think it's going to be a huge factor on Friday. More on that, plus my predictions, is coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by TNT College Football. It's that time of year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever. Bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love, TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern. Leading into our first matchup, the SMU Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Do not miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. I feel like when a lot of people do game previews, they forget about special teams, and we are certainly not going to do that on this show because special teams was a huge factor for the Hoosiers in their loss to Ohio State, and it's a big reason why they got down early in that game. So the game was tied at 7-7 in the first quarter, and then the Indiana punter coughed it up, and Ohio State took it over at the IU 7, and they punched the ball in to take a 14-7 lead. Then on the next possession, Indiana had to punt again, and Caleb Downs returned a punt to the house to put the Buckeyes up 21-7, and it was basically over from that point on. I expect special teams to have a big impact on this game as well. We know about Notre Dame's kicking woes, but they have been very effective with fake punts and by blocking field goals and punts on the other side, so it's going to be a factor. As for IU, they have an accurate kicker, but he does not have a big leg at all. He's 9 of 10 on field goal attempts this year with a long of 41. His only miss was 40-plus yards, and he has not kicked one attempt beyond 50 yards. Most of their kickoffs have been returnable, nearly 75% at that. So could this be the game where Jaden Harrison finally breaks one? And we've been talking about it all year long. This guy was an All-American last year at returning when he was at Marshall. He returned 2 kicks to the house, but we haven't really seen him get that many opportunities this year. That is going to change in the game against Indiana unless this kicker just gets carried by the wind, which could happen. Their punter is from New Zealand, so not quite an Aussie punter, but it's close to it. And he's decent. He averages 44.2 yards per attempt. I'm honestly more curious to see if Indiana is going to be willing to run some fake punts against Notre Dame's extremely aggressive punt coverage unit. Notre Dame has been bringing in a bunch of different guys to try to block it. No one has dared to try to fake it on them just yet. Maybe that changes in this game. I mean, they've had a ton of time to prepare. You would think that when you're so aggressive trying to block a punt, you'd be more susceptible to a fake, but we're going to have to wait and see because on the other side, Indiana is going to have to be very cognizant of Notre Dame running fakes as well because they've done it a bunch this season in a bunch of different ways. So that's going to be something to watch for in this game. Indiana, to their credit, they've also been good at blocking kicks and punts. They've blocked 2 kicks this year plus a punt, and they've got a good return man in Miles Price. So for Notre Dame, we know that they can't kick field goals, and even though that hasn't come back to haunt them just yet, this could certainly be the time. And the weather conditions are not going to make it any easier. Mitch Jeter had such a great start to the season, started 3 of 3 on field goal attempts against Texas A&M in a really hostile environment that was so difficult to do, and he just has not been the same since he got hurt. And Notre Dame has not seen one go through the uprights in a really long time. I wonder if they're going to trust him at all in this game, because there was a moment in that game against USC where I actually think they ran the ball on third down to set up a very easy field goal attempt early in the game. Marcus Freeman would never say it, but I honestly think they did that on purpose to set up a chip shot for Mitch Jeter to knock it in and build some confidence going into the playoff. But he hit that one off the upright, and now I don't know if he has any confidence going into this game. Hopefully, the past couple weeks, the rest and all of that has helped him heal up, and now it's just a mental thing. Like, is he going to be confident when he goes out there to kick the ball? We are going to have to see on Friday. But when you consider how aggressive these teams have been at blocking kicks and the fact that they both really prioritize special teams and making an impact in that phase, I think it's going to play a big part in who wins this game. I'm not just talking about field position and all that. I really think there's going to be a big play on special teams that could flip the outcome of this game. So, who's going to win? I like the Irish to win. I like the Irish to cover. I like the Irish to win 28-17. If both teams come out and play their absolute best game, Notre Dame comes out and they play their best game of the season, and IU does the same. They both play at peak capacity. Notre Dame probably wins that game by 2 touchdowns because they have more talent across the board. But talent alone does not win you games. And this is a very well-coached Indiana team who does have very talented players as well. And I know the score was pretty lopsided against Ohio State. It was 31-7 for much of the second half, and then IU started to pull that stuff where they were like burning clock so that they could score, and then the score would not look quite as bad, which I thought was so weak at the time. But they were able to cut the deficit to 38-15. Either way, Ohio State was in control for pretty much that entire game. But it's not like they were gashing them on offense. The Buckeyes only had 316 yards of total offense in that game, but they scored 38 points because they basically got 14 off special teams, and they won the field position battle all game long. Their defense completely shut down IU's offense after the first drive. Indiana came right down the field, scored 11-play drive, put some points up on the board early. That was it. They did not move the ball really the rest of the game up until the second half. They scored in garbage time, and I expect Notre Dame's defense to be in control of this game as well, even though it would not shock me at all if IU got the ball and they went right down the field and scored in the opening drive, because we have seen that happen against Notre Dame a lot this year. They've cleaned it up lately, but Indiana has 2 weeks to prepare. They're going to have a great script to come out against Notre Dame's defense. If that happens, don't panic, okay? This is college football. Teams score early. There's a long game to be played after that. And Indiana, to their credit, has been really good at getting on the board early. But whenever Notre Dame gives up points early, they typically figure it out and lock it down from there. I think Notre Dame is going to be able to do that again. And I feel like Notre Dame was able to seal that game against USC with their defense, but they won it with their offense, really. That was one of their best offensive performances of the season. Before Jeremiah Love got hurt, Jadarian Price came in. He added one of his signature runs as well. Riley Leonard, outside of his interception, I thought he was passing the ball really well in this game. Notre Dame's wide receivers are really going to have to step up, though, because it's not going to be easy. These are not fun conditions to play in if you're a wide receiver, because you're running around a lot, you're blocking, you're probably not going to get as many passes thrown your way just given the weather conditions and all of that. But when Notre Dame needs to throw the ball, these guys have to step up. I think Mitchell Evans is going to be a big factor in this game, as I've been saying that a lot all season long. Well, he certainly was against USC, but it can't just be him. Bo Collins has to figure it out, because even though he's regressed really throughout much of the second half of the season, this is what he came to Notre Dame to do, to play in the college football playoff, to be wide receiver one. And lately he has not played like a wide receiver one, but he can make up for all of that with some big catches in this game. Jane Greathouse, Jordan Faison, those guys need to make some plays. Jane Harrison is going to be one of the best athletes on the field. Can he finally break one? Because one of the best passes that Notre Dame has had all season long was the post to him across the middle of the field. He took it 75 yards for a touchdown, but it got called back. Notre Dame has athletes. I think that matchup on the outside is basically going to be a wash on offense, so it's going to be able to come down to who can run the ball better. And Notre Dame has Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and Riley Leonard. This could be a coming out party for Jeremiah Love. I know that he was hurt in the USC game, missed most of the second half of that one, but Marcus Freeman said he fully expects him to be ready to go in this one, and he has not played on a stage quite like this since Texas A&M, and in that game, he scored the game-winning touchdown. Notre Dame fans know all about how good Jeremiah Love is and how electric he is. It seems like every single game now, he has an insane hurdle or he's trucking dudes. Like, this dude is the real deal. And going into next season, he is going to be one of, if not the best running backs in all of college football. People are starting to take notices of late with his highlight reel plays, but this could be a prime opportunity. Like, if he goes off for 150 rushing yards and 2 TDs, everyone is going to know about Jeremiah Love. But don't sleep on Jadarian Price. He's been so good this year too as running back too, and I think we're going to see one of his breakaway runs in this game as well. And if there's one thing about Marcus Freeman, he always has his teams ready to go in the biggest games. That doesn't mean they've always won, but they've always been ready. They've always come to play, and I fully expect them to do the same this Friday. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. I cannot wait to experience it all. I can't believe that we still have to wait almost a full week to get to that game, because I've been thinking about this game nonstop ever since it was announced, and I just know what that scene is going to be like. Notre Dame Stadium is going to be electric, and yeah, sure, I've had my complaints about the stadium and the atmosphere before, but when it's on, and it is going to be on Friday night. And if Notre Dame is able to win this game, which I think they will be able to do, they get to advance to take on the Georgia Bulldogs. What a matchup that could be. But they've got to take care of business on Friday against the Hoosiers. I think they will. I like the Irish to win 28-17. All right, that's going to do it for me today. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. Plenty more coverage about this game coming your way the rest of the week. Luke Smith is going to be joining me to talk more about the game against IU. We're going to try to provide some historical context as well. Plus, I'm trying to have a few more guests on the rest of the week, and then I'm going to have a mailbag at the end, so get those questions in. Also, be sure to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to the podcast. That way, you never miss an episode. And you can help out the show a great deal by liking this video if you're watching along on YouTube, or if you're listening to the podcast, please rate it 5 stars and leave a review on your preferred platform. And I'm going to see you on Tuesday.